All right, quick check on the Eastern Conference standings in the NBA. The Pistons holding a 5.5-game lead on the Knicks and Celtics out east. The Raptors, Cavs, Sixers sitting above that play-in cut line. After that, it's the Heat, Magic, Hawks, and Bulls sitting not so pretty in the play-in. Try to get a little north of that play-in, guys. We're just 6 days away from the NBA trade deadline. Who's going to be buyers? Who will be sellers? Those are the questions that arise this time of year. Luckily for us, Sam, Quinn, John Gonzalez are here. And Sam, you just posted the ultimate buyer's guide on CBSSports.com for the trade deadline here. So let's dive into the financials and the needs, and we'll start here in the East. Let's begin at the top of the standings with Detroit. How much money do the Pistons have to play with here, and what's their biggest need?
Yeah, they have as much money as they need. They're far below the luxury tax line. They have this big expiring contract in Tobias Harris. They've got a lot of mid-sized contracts. You know, guys like Jaden Ivey on a rookie deal who's appealing to other teams, but can't get consistent playing time in Detroit, doesn't have the role there that he's going to want long-term. So they can do pretty much anything. It doesn't look like they're going to get in on Giannis. They do have the chips if they wanted to. I think you're going one level down from there. You're not looking at superstars. You're looking at kind of those all-star type borderline guys. Ideally, you want a shooter. Ideally, you want a power forward. I look at the Brooklyn Nets with Michael Porter Jr., perfect fit for them. You can slide him right into Tobias Harris's role at power forward. He can make threes for you. He can help generate offense for you, and Cade Cunningham's on the bench. We've seen this year he's taken on a much bigger role as the number one option in Brooklyn. He can do more as a shot creator than he ever got to show in Denver. I think Detroit is kind of a happy medium where he wouldn't have to be the number one option like he is in Brooklyn. Make him the number two, let him hit threes, let him lead the bench offense, and I think they'd be in great shape to win the East.
John, let's move over to the Celtics, a team that's been at the top of the East last, feels like 4 or 5 years, really. Their situation interesting, though, because Jason Tatum recently said he's unsure if he's going to return this year from the Achilles. What do their books look like? And if Tatum sits out, what's the whole year? What does their moves need to be moving forward?
Yeah, it's kind of strange that we're even in this situation with the Celtics, where I thought, a lot of people thought that they were going to have a gap year this year, kind of like the Pacers. And instead they're third in the Eastern Conference. And we're sitting here wondering, maybe they should be buyers and add to this team. They could certainly use some front court help outside of, say, Queta. They really don't have many good bigs. Can I interest you maybe in a Daniel Gafford? But as you mentioned, Jason Tatum, if he doesn't come back, do they really want to be buyers, or do they just instead want to duck the tax? And if they want to duck the tax, somebody like an Anthony Simons might be on the move, or maybe a Sam Hauser. Simons makes the most sense because of $27 million. He's the kind of contract that not only as a player that you could move, but also that would get you below that tax line. So if I'm the Celtics and I think Jason Tatum isn't coming back, despite the fact that they're having a great season, despite the fact that Jaylen Brown has been phenomenal and Derek White has been phenomenal, I'm probably looking to save a little bit of money and then wait until next year when Tatum is ready to go.
All right, let's move over to Toronto, to the six, Sam. The Raptors have a lot of money tied up in their starting five. Is there any wiggle room for them to do anything? And if they can make a move, what is it?
Yeah, the idea here would be if you're making a big move, one or multiple of those starters have to be in the trade. They're right up at the luxury tax now. I suspect they will try to get out of the tax. It's easy enough to do. You trade an Ochai Agbaji, somebody on the bench, you could make that happen. But the Raptors have been big game hunters throughout this deadline cycle. They've looked at Anthony Davis. They've looked at Ja Morant. There have been some rumblings about Giannis. I don't know that I'd go quite that far, but they have all of their own picks. They have some young guys they can trade. I'm looking at Domantas Sabonis right now. Jakob Poeltl, their starting center, has been dealing with a back injury. He also has a pretty precarious long-term contract that they signed him to in the offseason that I wonder if they now might regret. Could you go to Sacramento, get them to take the Jakob Poeltl contract, maybe RJ Barrett with him, get back Domantas Sabonis, send out a number of first-round picks to make that happen? I think you could probably do that with 2 unprotected first-round picks. Get an all-star caliber center in there, really juice your offense to match the defense, which has been very good this year. Now you're talking about a team that's a real threat in the Eastern Conference playoffs.
Now, we've been dancing around the Giannis question a little bit, so let's move to teams that are in the Giannis sweepstakes. John, the Knicks. What do the next 6 days look like for New York as they try to maneuver the cap and stay in the running for the Greek Freak?
Yeah, complicated, right? Because if they're targeting Giannis, it's going to be very, very difficult for this to happen. Our resident draft expert, trade expert, Sam Quinn, put together a couple of different mocks. And what we learned through doing this process on a different HQ segment was that if the Knicks want to land Giannis, they're probably going to have to loop in a third team or a fourth team, because just doing it straight up is not going to work out for them. They've said that they're interested in listening to offers for Karl Anthony Towns. Well, the Bucks don't want Karl Anthony Towns. And further complicating matters is the Knicks don't have any picks to dangle in front of the Bucks in order to secure Giannis. They've got a 2026 Wizards pick, but that's not going to convey because it's top 8 protected. And after that, it converts to 2 seconds. When they went and traded for Mikal Bridges, they gave up 5 first-round picks. Well, part of the problem there is now you're in a situation where you want to go out and get Giannis, and you just really don't have the ammo to do it. So through a complication of probably not wanting Karl Anthony Towns and or having to unplug somebody like OG Anunoby or potentially Mikal Bridges, if the Knicks really want to go out and get Giannis, it's going to have to require a whole bunch of moving parts, and I just don't think that they're going to be able to get it done.
Now, another team that's been mentioned in the whole Giannis sweepstakes, Sam, is the Miami Heat. They're below that play-in line at the moment. What does 80-year-old Pat Riley need to do at the deadline to land this whale?
Yeah, I mean, fortunately for the Heat, they're not in the position that the Knicks are. They could actually probably make a 2-team trade. They have some of their own picks. They've got a little bit of a complication, owing a 2027 pick to the Hornets. That makes it hard to trade 2026 or 2028 because of the step-in rule. But you can trade 2 first-round picks. You can trade 3 first-round swaps. You have Khalil Ware, a very promising young big man. Milwaukee might be able to look at and say, hey, maybe we could develop him into a core player. You have Tyler Hero, who's a Wisconsin native and made the All-Star team last year. Maybe that's somebody you could put on billboards, sell tickets with, give the fans something to get a little bit excited about. Terry Rozier, big contract, obviously not playing right now because of that gambling investigation. They have a lot of younger guys deeper on the bench. You know, your Jaime Jaquez, your Yakachonis, the guy they picked last year, Pelle Larsson. They have the pieces to do this if Milwaukee likes the younger players that they have. They don't have quite as much pick ammunition as other teams, but when you combine the picks, you combine the younger players, I do think there is a path here to get Giannis. If it's not going to be Giannis, you pivot to Memphis. Ja Morant sitting right there. You could do it for probably just a cap dump, maybe a minor asset. So if they don't get Giannis, I think that's where they're probably looking next.
Heat fans keep getting teased that they're going to be in the sweepstakes for one of these big guys, seems like each and every year, to see if they do, in fact, land one. All right, guys. Sam, John, sit tight. We're not done with you just yet, but real quick, we do want to take a look at the odds to win the Eastern Conference as they stand right now. Pistons with the best at plus 320, followed by those Knicks and the Celtics, Cavs, Magic, 76ers to follow. Obviously, these odds subject to change, and they could change February 5th when we get to that trade deadline. Now, when we come back, Sam and John are back to dive into the Western Conference. Are the Spurs best positioned to get even stronger? More on HQ Spotlight on the other side. Welcome back to HQ Spotlight. Here's a check-in on the Western Conference standings in the NBA before we get to our trade deadline discussion. OKC represents the top seed. They're 38 wins, best in the league right now. Spurs, Nuggets, Rockets, T-Wolves, Lakers continue to give chase. LA barely above the play-in line, ahead of the Phoenix Suns. Now with that, let's welcome back the guys, Sam Quinn and John Gonzalez, as we continue our look into the NBA trade deadline across the league. Now we're moving out west. And John, let's begin with the Spurs. They have everything. They have Victor Wembanyama, and it seems like they also have a lot of cap space as well. So just how good do the Spurs have it right now, and what kind of move do you think they make, and what does that move look like? Long-term, short-term, what are you thinking?
Yeah, San Antonio, life is good in San Antonio right now, right? I mean, they have a lot of optionality. You mentioned their flexibility. They're top 10 in offense and defense, and they've got Victor Wembanyama, so they're way ahead of the curve, right? They're second in the Western Conference, and if they wanted to make some moves, they have the ammo to do it. I mean, they've got De'Aaron Fox, Stephon Castle, Dylan Harper, second overall pick, and then you go to their bench is pretty deep, right? Or their supporting cast is pretty deep from Devin Vassell to Julian Champagnie, Keldon Johnson. They bring in Luke Cornett. They control all their own picks except for 2027. They got pick swaps. They've got the Hawks unprotected 2027 first. I think if you were going to upgrade here, I know that some people would love to imagine the world where Giannis ends up there. I don't think they need to take a big swing here. Maybe you'd want to upgrade on a Harrison Barnes. Trey Murphy, how great would he look in San Antonio? Unfortunately, the Pelicans say they don't want to move on from Trey Murphy. So I think if the Spurs are doing anything here, it's probably a little tinkering on the margins, maybe a little shooting upgrade. If I'm the Spurs, this team already looks pretty good, Mike. I want to see what they're doing in the postseason with Wemby before I make any major changes.
Yeah, and they've beaten OKC a few times this year, so it's not like they can't compete with them. Sam, the Rockets sitting in the 4th seed in the West right now. They've got a couple of needs, but do they have the ability to make a move?
Yeah, I mean, the Rockets are in an interesting position. They built this team and went above the luxury tax with an idea that they had a real chance to win the championship this year. Now Fred VanVleet and Steven Adams are out for the year. They have $38 million sitting on their bench. You wonder, are they going to potentially try to use that to make an upgrade? I wonder if they might try to combine those contracts, throw in some picks, go for a Michael Porter Jr. type. What I think is likelier, though, will they try to get below the luxury tax and get another guard, ideally in the same trade? I look at a guy like Ayo Dosunmu only making around $7 million for the Bulls. Could you pry Ryan Rollins away from the Bucks now that they're headed in another direction, potentially trading Giannis? Is there a way you could take, say, a Dorian Finney-Smith, take that $12 million contract, shave half of it off, get below the tax, and find a guard in the process? If you do both, I think you're feeling very good about this deadline.
John, let's move over to the LA Lakers. What are they staring at here? Are they staring at making a move now, or possible rebuild is in their future?
Yeah, I think this is a rebuild on the fly, right? They're fifth in the Western Conference, but that roster is flawed in the extreme. I mean, your top line looks good, right? You've got Luka and LeBron and Austin Reeves, and you're like, all right, we're off to the races. Well, they're 25th in defense for a reason, because that roster gets really thin really fast. DeAndre Ayton has not been the answer at center. They moved Rui Hachimura to the bench. They're giving Jake LaRavia and Marcus Smart way too minutes out of necessity, because what else do you have, right? This whole thing has been geared towards shedding salary. They decided not to give LeBron James a new contract this offseason. That was the right idea, because he makes $54 million. He's an expiring contract. He's going to come off the books this summer. They want to pay Austin Reeves this summer. But this whole thing is geared towards shedding salary, not just this summer, but the following summer, especially in 2027, when basically they can clear the decks of almost everybody except for Luka and Austin Reeves, and then you try to put this thing back together on the fly.
Sam, in Minnesota, feels like maybe the opposite situation, if I'm right. Are they trying to keep the current roster together with maybe a minor tweak here or there?
Well, sure. Could you go out and get a point guard? Could you go out and get Kobe White, somebody in that vein? Yeah, sure. I'm thinking much bigger. I'm going fishing for the whale. Let's talk about Giannis Antetokounmpo for the Minnesota Timberwolves. If you think the New York Knicks can do this, I see no reason why the Minnesota Timberwolves can't. Jaden McDaniels would attract just as much interest on the trade market as Mikal Bridges or OG Anunoby. He's younger than those guys. He's cheaper than those guys. He's an all-defense caliber wing. I think you put him out on the market, you could get several first-round picks you could redirect to the Bucks. Then you're talking about Julius Randle, Rudy Gobert, Dante DiVincenzo. Those guys, could you move some of them, get more draft capital? I'm not saying it's likely. I'm saying Tim Connelly has pulled out much bigger surprises than this. He was willing to trade Karl-Anthony Towns coming off of the best season in franchise history. He's been willing to make bold moves throughout his entire tenure. If you think there is any chance whatsoever, you can bet he's trying to find it. So I'm not saying they're the favorites. I am saying keep an eye on them as the sleeper for Giannis.
All right, and John, on the other Giannis side of this, I guess, is Golden State a sleeper or maybe a non-sleeper? They're just maybe an obvious destination spot for him. Jimmy Butler's done for the year. What's the likelihood maybe we see the Greek Freak end up playing alongside Steph?
Yeah, I think this one makes a lot of sense. I want to applaud our mad scientist, though, Sam Quinn, for coming up with a way to land Giannis in Minnesota. Genius. I mean, I thought I liked Jaden McDaniels. He likes Jaden McDaniels even more, but that would be a lot of fun. But let's talk about a reality situation here now instead of a fantasy one, because I think the Warriors are actually a favorite to land Giannis. It just makes so much sense. As you mentioned, Mike, Jimmy Butler out for the season with an ACL injury. Jonathan Kuminga has already put his hand up and said, I want out of this place. They won't play me. I'm 23 years old. Get me to a situation where I can actually get some shots up. This would make a lot of sense for Milwaukee too, right? You give them all the run that you can. And here on top of it, you're placing Giannis next to Steph. Steph is 37 years old. They've already called Golden State a fading dynasty. That is true. But what would it look like if all of a sudden you're running that two-man game with Giannis and Steph Curry? Good luck to opposing defenses trying to shut those two guys down if they're on the same team. And here's the other reason why I think that the Warriors are favorites. They have up to 4 first-round picks that they can offer. What are you saving them for, right? That window on Steph Curry is closing sooner rather than later. Throw out the bushel, bring in Giannis. Let's get this party started. This one makes sense. I want this thing to happen too. Giannis to Golden State.
I like all of it. I like the 17 trade deals. You know, I like the reality. Why not? I mean, it's the NBA. The trade deadlines is just about as fun. The offseason's always great. Guys, thank you so much. We'll see what ends up happening again. We're about 6 days away from that trade deadline, February 5th. Here are the odds to win the Western Conference right now as they stand. The Thunder leading the charge at -150. The Nuggets there, +410 ahead of the Spurs. Remember, Jokic is coming back pretty soon, and the Rockets, Timberwolves, and Lakers follow. We'll see what ends up happening out west, but first we got to see what happens in the trade deadline.